What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today we are talking wildcard drafts. This has been quite requested. I guess a lot of people are using it in the international break. It's probably this week, or game week 10 is probably the last time you really want to use it before you just wait to see if the double game weeks are announced later on by kind of game week 15, 16. But right now we're going to do a draft, and the way I've done it is I've gone through the defenders, which I don't think would change too much no matter what I put into the attack, like whether I spread the funds into midfield or the forward line. I think the defence would stay the same. And then I've got two different drafts depending on whether you do want to put more money in the forward line or if you want to put more money into midfield, which of course is up to you. But I've done two different drafts, and I'll talk about certain players that you might want to switch up as well. So before we get into it, if you enjoy this type of video, please do give it a like. We've been hitting over 1,000 likes on every single video this season, so please do keep that up. And hit subscribe if you're new around here. Hopefully, by the time this video goes live, we'll already be at 120k, which means we are now going for the goal of 125k before the end of the season. So if you're enjoying my content, please do hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and let's jump into it. So we'll talk about the defense first. Now, this is very similar to my team for a number of reasons, right? Obviously, I quite like my team. I haven't put that team together and absolutely hate it. I haven't wildcarded that long ago either. And obviously, we're coming into a period where I have been planning and thinking ahead. And so, yeah, the team is quite similar, but not exactly the same. And obviously, a few admin things straight away, right? I will have bought players at different prices to you. So maybe you got on Martinez at 4.5, maybe you got on Lamptey at 4.5, maybe you still haven't bought those players and they're even more expensive, especially the likes of Chilwell, etc. So you might not be able to build this exact team. This video isn't here for you to copy exactly. It's just to give you some ideas and some things to think about. But this is the team I would probably go for. Now, depending on which draft I go for, I have got a bit of money in the bank, right? When I go for the higher forward line, I think I've got about 0.7 in the bank. When I go for the higher midfield, I actually have 1.3 million in the bank. So I could make some upgrades to someone like Mitchell. Now, Mitchell's an interesting one in that we don't 100% know that he's lost his place, because the last two games that Van Aanholt have played, he's been injured, right? So when he's back fit, he might go back into the team. I would highly doubt that, because I think there was a chance that he could have kept his place if he was fit. But as soon as he's unfit, Van Aanholt comes in. It would take a lot from Hodgson to then bench Van Aanholt, I think. So I do think he's probably lost his place. I don't know that for 100% certainty, but I'd say it's quite likely. But for 4 million, you still got four other defenders that are going to play most of the time anyway. You probably don't need to rely on that bench player that much. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it. If you've got the money to spend on that position or a backup goalkeeper and you're not worried about having that money later on in the season, then fair enough. But for me, I would still go quite cheap. Now, for goalkeepers, the one reason I've got I mean, there's no 4 million goalkeepers that are going to play. Even for Villa, right, Steer is probably backup, but Heaton's back playing now. I've seen him playing, I think it was for under 23s. So he might even be second choice, right? And he's 4.5, I think. So there's probably no £4 million playing keepers. The reason I've gone for Forster is just not to lock myself in with Steer, because as we've seen, there's a few people that can't get triple Villa now. And we might not have been thinking about it at the start of the season, but a lot of people are looking to go there. So I'll just go for any 4 million, whatever. I still like Martinez. I think there's maybe an argument to go for Target in defence and go for a different goalkeeper. But at 4.5 million, you know, there isn't a huge amount that I'd want. Maybe Meslier if you want to cover Leeds. But for me, if I was covering Leeds defence, I'd want a defender. I've been saying that for a while. McCarthy's probably the only other one, because you could go for Walker-Peters, but I do think there's better 4.5 million defender options out there. So if you weren't too keen on going for Martinez because he's too expensive, or you wanted to go for Target instead, like Martinez versus Target, you save quite a bit of money, and you could just get McCarthy and go instead. So that's another way to save a bit of money. But ultimately, I'd want an Aston Villa defender in there. I still think Lamptey looks good. Brighton's underlying stats are actually pretty damn good when it comes to defence. It doesn't mean they're going to convert them into clean sheets all the time, but I think in their easier fixtures like we saw against Burnley, they are going to do really well. And again, underlying numbers-wise, they are looking pretty decent under Potter this season. And Lamptey is so attacking, I would still want him in my team, so he would definitely be in there. Chilwell, 100%, right? Right now, I think for me, he's looking like not a season keeper. Like, he could get injured. Something could happen where I want to sell him. But right now, he looks like a set and forget. Just put him in, play him every single week, even in the tougher fixtures. He could get attacking returns, defensive returns under Lampard for that Chelsea team as well. I think he would definitely be in. And then Soufal for West Ham. Again, I just think he's a nice, cheap way to cover West Ham. Now, you could go for Cresswell. I think Cresswell is the more attacking. He is on set pieces. You do pay a premium for that 5.1 million. And that would probably put me off. I've seen some people like going for Cresswell over Cancelo, and there's probably an argument to do that. But I think over the medium to long term, like the next 10 game weeks, I think Man City more likely to get clean sheets. And if Cancelo is nailed and plays, then he's got attacking threat as well. So I don't think Cresswell is the be all and end all. Like if you look at, I think their chances created between Cancelo and Cresswell for the whole season. Cancelo's not that far behind, and he's played half the minutes. I think he's on 11 and Cresswell's on like 17. But Cancelo's only played 360 minutes, I believe, and Cresswell's like 720. So he has played virtually double the amount of minutes as Cancelo. Now, the problem with Cancelo is, I've just said his name like a million times, is he nailed on? We probably can't say that, right? When Mendy comes back, he might have a say in who plays that left-back spot. But he is doing well, and that consistent backline now, Cancelo, Walker, Diaz and Laporte is looking pretty good, and the clean sheets are going to be there, and maybe Pep will want to play a consistent back four. Now, it is Pep Guardiola. We know he's going to rotate. We know there's a lot of matches to come. I guess the hope would be that Mendy comes back. They're so well. They're doing so well in the group stage of the Champions League that he can afford to rest in the Champions League, not in the Premier League. And you've got to be thinking, if you're Pep, right? Obviously, he wants to win the league. But this year, you see what's happened at Liverpool. Gomez could be out for the long term. Trent is out maybe for 4 weeks now. And Van Dijk's obviously out for the longer term as well. Pep's got to see that as a good chance to get the league back from Liverpool. So a consistent back four could probably help with that. Fully understand if you don't want to go for it. It could be another transfer down the line. But I think with the fixtures and the potential for attacking returns, it's pretty exciting. So that would be my back line. You could still back Leeds defence. You're not playing that Leeds defender every single week. You play them in the good fixtures. They're very attacking, things like that. So you could go for a Leeds defender potentially. But I think a lot of people are probably put off by them at the moment. So Soufal is maybe a slightly safer option as it stands right now. No Liverpool defender. I just think they're looking a bit dodgy now, especially with all the injuries they've got. So I just wouldn't go there. I think there's clean sheets probably coming for Liverpool with the fixtures they got. And bearing in mind, they've still got, most of their midfielders fit, forward line fit. They're still going to do quite well this season. They are probably going to keep quite a few clean sheets. But right now, I think it would be hard to be on wildcard and justify Robertson when they might be missing Trent, Gomez and Van Dijk, 3 of their main back four. So right now, I probably wouldn't go Robertson, and I'd put that money into attack instead. So as I said, from here on out, the defence doesn't change. Only the players up front do. Now, there's some consistent players in both drafts, right? So they are Calvert-Lewin, Kevin De Bruyne, Mo Salah, Basuma, but he could be any 4.5 million midfielder. It doesn't have to be him. And Grealish. Now, you could go 3-5-2, but I'm looking at the players and thinking I still want to stick to a 3-4-3. I'm still fairly confident about the number of strikers that we got at our disposal. Like Kane could come back into our thinking. For some people, Kane hasn't gone out with their thinking. They're keeping him. You've got Vardy, Bamford, Watkins, Antonio. The list goes on. So 3-4-3 is still looking good for me. Mo Salah hasn't really done anything wrong. I will say, and I've said this already in the template video, his underlying numbers are not fantastic for him. We do hold him to a higher standard because of just how good he is. But he's obviously been backing up with penalties, and at some point he's going to go on a run where from open play he's doing extremely well as well. And if you look at the fixtures between now and game week 20, there's a lot of times you're going to want to captain a Liverpool player, I think, or at least I would. And obviously this is my team. You don't have to agree with it. So Mo Salah would definitely stay. I definitely want one Man City midfielder, right? You can look at the games that have gone so far and say they're not doing that well, and I would fully agree they have not been at the levels we've seen before. I do think there's potentially some circumstance, and the thing with FPL is we often have to make decisions based on, almost like hypothetical situations or scenarios that we have to play out in our head. So you can look at the first kind of seven games that Man City have played, right? 8 game weeks, but Man City have played 7. And you could say to yourself, they're just not the same team this year, right? Pep can't keep the number of points up. They got close to over 100 points and close to 100 points, etc. They've come down to just over 80 last season. And now they just can't keep that up, and they're going to be poor for the rest of the season. Or you can look at it and say, well, they didn't have Aguero, then they didn't have Jesus, then they didn't have De Bruyne, etc. Then Aguero came back, he got injured again. Now Jesus is back, they should be looking good. And it depends which kind of camp you're in, right? Maybe you're in the one where you think Man City are just not that good this season, or you're in the one where you say they've been so good, at some point they're going to turn it on and the fixtures are coming. And I think if I was wildcarding, I'd want to be in the camp where we say they've got really good fixtures coming up. I need to have a player ready for them. You could put in Bruno Fernandes for the West Brom game, maybe play him for the Southampton game, and then bring in De Bruyne or Sterling for the Fulham game in game week 11. But for me, I'd probably just rather have De Bruyne in straight from the get-go. But that's just the way I would play the game, because I think the Liverpool-Man City captaincy alternating, not necessarily every other game week, but having those two teams as captains for the next kind of 8-9 game weeks is looking pretty good. You could captain Fernandes or even Rashford in game week 9 against West Brom. But for me, if you build a wildcard team, you don't want to straight away be spending transfers the next game week, right? If you want to get Fernandes in and hold him for like the medium term or for forever, for the rest of the season, then fair enough. But if you're already thinking about getting rid of him in game week 10, I would personally just hope that someone else does just as well in game week 9 that you could captain, whether it's Calvert-Lewin, Salah, Grealish, whoever, and that you don't need to spend that transfer. I'm doing a wildcard team personally. I want to make sure it's good for at least a couple of game weeks before I have to start worrying about maybe using transfers. Grealish is in every single draft I would do right now. He's just so involved at Villa. The fixtures are so good. No reason not to go for him, I don't think. And then Ziyech is in. I think he looks really good for Chelsea. 2 double-figure hauls in a row. Looks decent. The fixtures are okay. You'll see in a minute when I do the next draft. I think a lot of the hype around Ziyech is because he's got 2 double-digit hauls, and we should pay attention to that because given the amount of assists he could get this season, he could keep that up. He's going to be good for bonus. I'm still not sure he's going to score enough goals necessarily to warrant the amount of hype that he's getting right now. But if I was building a team like this with Jamie Vardy in, I would put Ziyech in, I think. So that would be my midfield. Like I said, Basuma could be any 4.5 million midfielder. I don't really think there's a standout. I probably would just stick with him. And then up front, I'd want Calvert-Lewin. It's maybe a different conversation if you don't already own him because he is quite expensive. But you look at the next 3 fixtures, Fulham starting off, he's so high owned. And I just think even if you take ownership out of the equation, he's going to do well against Fulham. They're going to have their full squad ready unless they get injured over the international break, which could happen, of course. I think this draft might change by the time we get close to the deadline. But the next 3 fixtures are good, starting with Fulham. I would definitely want Calvert-Lewin in there. Bamford probably. I think if you're just going for 6.5 or less striker, you could go for Antonio if he's fit. I'm not going to talk about him any more than that. Or Watkins even as well. But looking how Bamford has played so far and how Leeds have played so far, he is probably a long-term hold. Get him in at 6.1 million, set and forget. I know the next 3 aren't ideal, but Arsenal can be got at. We saw Aston Villa do that. If Leeds play in a similar way, they could do well. And against Everton, they've been shipping goals too. So maybe, the next 3 don't look good on paper, but they might not be that bad given how Leeds play. And obviously after that, the fixtures look really good. So if I was wildcarding, I might just put Bamford in, set and forget for like maybe the next 8 to 10 game weeks and then reconsider him down the line. And then this draft has got Jamie Vardy in because I know a lot of people are looking at him. Fulham in game week 10 could be a captaincy option. If Liverpool really are going to be without Gomez, they don't suddenly become whipping boys because they lose Gomez. Like I said, they've still got their midfield there. They've still got some good players to bring into that defence. Like if Matip is fit, maybe if Fabinho can get fit, Milner plays right back maybe. That's still an experienced backline. They're not going to suddenly start getting battered. But if you were looking at bringing Jamie Vardy in, you'd want him to play against a patched-up Liverpool defence. Then he's got Fulham at home. Then it's Sheffield United who haven't played well this year. Then it's Brighton at home. It's a nice little run of fixtures. Plus, you keep that structure to be able to get a Jesus or an Aguero or a Kane. If you want to sell him, then get him back for game week 16, for example, when they play Fulham at home and they have a slightly better fixture on than they're about to embark on. Then you keep that structure and you have Jamie Vardy. So that's my Jamie Vardy draft. Let's look at the big midfield draft. So here's the bigger midfield draft. Now, if you've been watching my videos, this is basically the dilemma that I've been struggling with. Vardy and Ziyech versus a cheap striker and a bigger midfield. Now, this does have 1.3 million in the bank. For me, it might be a bit different for you. So you could go Soufal to Cresswell. You could get a backup goalkeeper. You could go Mitchell to a different 4.5. And I don't think that move is the end of the world, right? Having another 4.5 on the bench. Like if I had Chilwell, Cancelo, and bearing in mind, we don't have a Liverpool defender, so there is more money to go around. So if you go Chilwell, Cancelo, Soufal, Lamptey, and another 4.5, that really will help you out longer term if there's a bit of rotation or if you just need different options. So you go for a Leeds defender, maybe even double up on Villa, maybe go for Southampton goalkeeper and go for Matt Target instead. You could go for 5 at the back. Also, having 1.3 in the bank does give you a bit to upgrade Bamford and Watkins, because in this draft we have gone for 2 of the cheapest forwards. Now, down the line, you might go for a Che Adams, who's around the same price anyway. But at some point, you might want to go up to Antonio, to Wilson, to whoever it might be, right, at 6.5 million. So bearing that in mind, you'd want a little bit of cash in the bank. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail of whether this is better than the Vardy one, because to be honest, it's still playing on my mind. I'm not 100% sure. But some of you will know whether you want to put more in midfield or the strikers. And I do think at the moment Bamford and Watkins are just looking like such better value than any midfielder around the same price, apart from maybe Jota or Foden if they start getting minutes. So they're looking really, really good. Now, if you don't want to go double City midfield straight away, if you're still waiting for them to click or whatever it might be, this could be your way to have Salah, have De Bruyne ready to go for those good fixtures, and have Fernandes. Now, obviously, that will give you even more money in the bank to spend elsewhere. You could put that around the squad now and just go for Fernandes long term, or you could just go for him for the West Brom game, the Southampton game, and then switch to Sterling for the Fulham game, or start with Sterling and switch to De Bruyne, whichever way around you want to do it, right? It doesn't matter to me, that's obviously up to you. But it gives you that Man City midfielder straight away, because I think most people are going to want one, right? No matter what you think of them, most people in the back of the mind are going to be thinking, it's City, they can turn it on at any minute, or any minute. He's probably still going to have penalties as well. Or the other thing, which I haven't seen a lot of people considering, right? I'm sat here saying that Liverpool and Man City have both got good fixtures, and so we should be looking to have them. Maybe instead of going for double City attack, maybe you go for double Liverpool attack, right? So you have De Bruyne in there, and because of the money you got left over, hopefully, again, not everyone will have the same team value as me. Instead of going for De Bruyne and Sterling, maybe you go for De Bruyne and Mane. Mane has looked very good from open play, and match him up with Salah instead. So that's another way around you can do it. But basically, instead of having Vardy, you have that big hit in midfield instead. Now, some people, or a lot of people, will look at it and say Vardy and Ziyech is better than a cheap striker in Sterling or Fernandes or Mane. I'm not so sure it is, right? I just think someone like Watkins, for example, let's use him, or even Antonio, right, if he's fit. They're both on penalties. We think Antonio is still on penalties because Noble's not really playing right now. But Watkins definitely on penalties, playing 90 minutes for a Villa side that are looking good. Could he match Ziyech? I think he'd find it difficult, but I think it's possible. And then you look at someone like Mane or Sterling or Fernandes on their day. Can they match Jamie Vardy? Well, okay, with Fernandes, you'd probably say his scores are being topped up with penalties as well. Vardy's definitely are, right? Leicester are creating hardly any chances, having hardly any shots in the box outside of penalties. At some point, surely they're going to dry up, right? They might have a Man United season where they get 14. They've already had 8. But they aren't. Vardy's not doing that well outside of penalties. Now, they do have really good fixtures, and would I back against him? Absolutely not. But if that's playing on your mind about whether you to go for Vardy or the midfielder, I don't think... On paper, Ziyech and Vardy looks better than Sterling and Watkins, but I'm not so sure it is, right? Especially if Man City click, or if you go for Mane, or if you go for Fernandes instead. I think for my team, I'm siding to more like this. And this does look like the kind of team I will be going into Game Week 9 with, or at least I'll have by Game Week 10. There's a few changes here or there, but I don't think there's many other changes that I would make. I know a lot of people are looking at getting Fernandes, De Bruyne and Salah in, and with this kind of squad, you can do it. And obviously, if you go for that, Fernandes is cheaper than Sterling. There's already 1.3 in the bank. Then you're looking at 2 million to spend elsewhere. And look, you don't have to spend it just for Game Week 9. Just because you got it. You could hold it for a rainy day. Maybe there's an injury for Fernandes and you can go right up to a bigger midfielder if you want to. Whatever it might be, there's options. The key, I think, for wildcards is remain flexible as much as you can. You don't have to spend the money just because it's there. And do kind of plan for at least the medium term. You don't want to be spending a huge amount of transfers as you go. But that is the Sterling draft. Look, there's plenty of other drafts I could do, 3-5-2, you know, maybe big hitters up front. But I think right now, the two that I've gone for are what people are mostly looking at. So that's it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do give it a like. It really does help me out on this channel. And hit subscribe if you're new around here. And I know what's coming. You've looked at those drafts, you don't like them, that's fine. Let me know in the comments below what are the major changes you would make, who are essential players, or who are your top 5 essential wildcard players. I'll put a pinned comment below, reply to that and let me know. Big shout out to everyone that signed up on Patreon as well, patreon.com/letstalkfpl. There's a link in the description below. There's early team reveals, there's Slack access, WhatsApp access, all that good stuff over there. So if you want to check it out, click that link in the description below. And a big shout out to everybody that signed up as well. Everyone in blue has been signed up for at least a year already. Lots more people going to hit that soon as well. And I did want to shout out to Dale R and Joshua M, who have also signed up since the last video. So big thank you to everyone that's supported me so far over on there. If you want to check it out, link in the description below. I'll be back at some point for more videos. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do yet. I might do a stream on Sunday with a little bit of a different a bit of a different way of doing it, but it might just be a normal Q&A stream. We'll wait and see. And then watch list, team selection, game week preview will all be next week, starting on Monday. So there might be a couple more videos before then. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit like, leave me a comment below, and I will catch you again soon.